This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Fauci lies and the Wuhan lab. Backed by popular demand, Peter Barry Chowka, an investigative reporter. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Peter, you are the Dr. Fauci expert, so we always come to you. Constant new developments. This is one creepy guy. Something is very wrong, and every day we find out something new. So 2 weeks ago, you and I did a program on Dr. Fauci Unmasked. Now, 2 weeks later, we're finding out a lot more. Bring us up to speed.
Right, Jamie. That program you mentioned went online on May 17th, 2021. That was the same day as my 2,500-word article on the same subject was published in American Thinker, Dr. Fauci Finally Unmasked, it was titled. And the focus was not only Fauci, but his apparent funding of the Wuhan virology lab in Red China that, as mounting evidence suggests, was the source of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I did not imagine then that in this past week, the story of Fauci, the gain of function research, the identification of the Wuhan lab as the source of the pandemic, that these would actually break through to the mainstream media, and they have. For example, May 27th, the lead story at the New York Times was Biden orders intelligence inquiry into origins of virus. I thought hell would freeze over before I'd ever read that in the New York Times. And this directive came as health officials and scientists, according to the Times, have renewed calls for a more rigorous examination. And leading the charge to this point of transparency, finally, has been Fox News, building on the reporting and the analysis of many others during the past year. And this week, Fox has headlined the story of the Wuhan virology lab being the source of COVID-19 on multiple programs, not only the opinion shows in primetime like Tucker Carlson, but on the hard news programs all day. And as a result, even the mainstream media, not only the New York Times, has been compelled to cover it. On May 25th, the Washington Post published a lengthy article titled Timeline: How the Wuhan Lab Leak Theory Suddenly Became Credible. This was a kind of mea culpa for the paper's previous coverage without calling it an apology. It omitted mention of many sources, including Steve Bannon and the Red Chinese refugee whistleblower, Dr. Yan. It did take note of a paper that was posted on February 6, 2020 by Bo-Tu Shao, a molecular biomechanics researcher from South China University of Technology. The title of the paper was The Possible Origins of 2019 COVID Coronavirus. It stated that, quote, the killer coronavirus probably originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, end quote. And today, as we speak, Jamie, May 27th, the New York Times sent out an email to tens of millions of people on their list titled, The Lab Leak Theory is Everywhere. We have an explainer. So again, the mainstream media has finally discovered this story. They're putting it out there, not only Fox News, not only people like us in the so-called alternative or new media. And here's something, too, that broke this week. The Wall Street Journal reported that 3 researchers from this lab in Wuhan, China, from the Virology Institute, became sick enough in November 2019 with COVID-like symptoms that they sought hospital care. Now, that was several months before the emergence of COVID-19 that the rest of the world found out about. So it's it's getting more and more interesting as time goes on. One final thought in this opening statement here. It was reported this week that the Biden administration had shut down an investigation by the State Department in the closing days that began in the closing days of the Trump administration to try to determine the true source of COVID-19. And who was the source of this story about the shutdown? CNN. So, again, amazing times, Jamie. And there is, for some of us now, finally some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe some real hope.
True. But let me say this. It might not be that big of a surprise that all this can kind of come out now, because they achieved what they had to do, and that's to get rid of Trump. They had to get rid of Trump. And now they got rid of Trump, and maybe some of the truth can come out now about a few things. But there's so many ways to look at this here. I want to come at this from this angle. Just these brainwashed people in this cult, like so many people I know, they just walk around, oh yeah, it was from a bat, it was from a bat. You know, they can't say that it was from a lab in China because Trump said it was from China, and Trump called it the Chinese virus, so there's no way that that could have been made in a lab. And all of these leftists don't know anything. They're just repeating this. It just cannot have come from a lab because Trump might say that it did, or Trump called it the Chinese virus. So, you know, we've got, you know, and everything else that comes with the cult. Got to wear the mask, got to get the vaccine, 6 feet distance, and it came from a bat, you know, all this nonsense. And now it's turning out that it might have come from a lab. But it gets very dark here. This is all very dark stuff because, Peter, what are these people, number one, what are they doing in these labs? These evil scientists, they're making all these potions, making all this stuff, so something's leaking out. But there's a chance now, there's a possibility that Fauci was involved in a certain environment that funded these experiments. Then there's a leak from these experiments which causes this outbreak, and then Fauci is somehow leading the cure for it, which is the lockdown. Okay, all alleged, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence, one could say, and it's very troubling that Fauci's name keeps popping up in all of this.
You're right. This all ultimately circles back to Dr. Anthony Fauci, and it's recently been reported and confirmed that the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases that he has directed since 1984 has granted at least $600,000 and maybe several $1 million, according to Senator Rand Paul, that Fauci directed this money to the communist Chinese scientists at this Wuhan virology lab for virus research. And the first question that should have been asked is, why is our National Institutes of Health doing this? There have also been reports that starting in 2014, by the way, these are not conspiracy theory reports. This is documented research that is being now heralded by some leading scientists and analysts in this country and abroad. But in 2014, Fauci, I'll say allegedly, used his position to circumvent the prohibition of this gain of function research, which means pumping up, turbocharging a naturally occurring animal virus to make it deadly to humans, gain of function research. He supposedly directed funneling it to the communist Chinese researchers at the Wuhan lab via a third party, so he would have plausible deniability. This is the kind of stuff that you would imagine reading in a Tom Clancy spy novel, but it's happening here right now. And it's not the only weird thing that Fauci's been involved with. If we had hours, I could go back into reflecting on my reporting of this man starting in 1985 when I did my first reporting on him, when he led the government's war on AIDS. That's for another time. But this came to light recently, Jamie, and I know you're familiar with this as well. A lot of research funded by Fauci's NIAID Institute is highly questionable. For example, earlier this month, David Daleiden, the founder of the pro-life activist group Center for Medical Progress, said on Fox News that Fauci should testify, he should be called before Congress to testify under oath about the nearly $500,000 grant that Fauci's agency, awarded to the University of Pittsburgh to, and I apologize for even having to describe this, this research was to conduct research using aborted babies' scalps implanted on animals. It's ghoulish, and dare I say, it seems more appropriate for something that would have come out of Germany during World War II. It's just incredible. Now,
But I think it's also important when you say animals, let's just add the animal here. These were lab rats. They're putting illegally aborted babies' scalps and grafting them onto lab rats. And Fauci is somewhere in this narrative as well. But go ahead.
it's horrendous. Reading about this, it chills your blood, and it's hard to even discuss it for a family audience. But now, speaking of questioning Fauci under oath, on May 26th, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana had that opportunity when he questioned Fauci at a U.S. Senate hearing on COVID-19. And Fauci again denied under oath that his agency ever funded this gain of function research at the Wuhan lab. But Senator Kennedy pressed him by asking, how do you know, and this is a quote, how do you know they, meaning the Wuhan scientists, did not lie to you and use the money for gain of function anyway? And Fauci replied, and I quote, there's no way of guaranteeing that, end quote. So, despite all of his denials, when he is pressed on the issue, he has to say there's no way to guarantee that what he said essentially was true. Now, Tucker Carlson this week, who's been really doing incredible reporting on all of these issues, he called Fauci a liar. He added, quote, he's the father of the virus. He funded the lab, meaning in China. He greased the skids for gain of function, which weaponized the virus, end quote. And a final point here, which I took some hope from. It was reported on May 25th that Republican lawmakers are demanding that Anthony Fauci be terminated from his role as the nation's top infectious disease expert. I mean, he's 80 years old. He's been there for almost 4 decades. It's time for him to retire because he's accused of flip-flopping on all these topics. And it was House Representative Warren Davidson, a Republican from Ohio, who proposed the FIRED Act, FIRED, whose acronym stands for, I like this, Fauci Incompetence Requires Early Dismissal, end quote. Oh, and finally, for his part, Peter Navarro, who was one of President Trump's top advisors during the entire presidency of Donald Trump, Peter Navarro predicted this week that Fauci will be gone in 90 days. And he also said, when he was a guest on Steve Bannon's War Room pandemic program this week, that, quote, this man is a sociopath, end quote, referring to Dr. Anthony Fauci. Now, that's not my words. I'm quoting Peter Navarro, an esteemed academic and one of President Trump's top advisors in the White House for 4 years.
Peter, thank you so much. Just even the discussion of Fauci. My dad and my mom, they always taught me and always recommended to me that in life, when you're coming out of something dark, a dark discussion or some dark reading, like you got to read about Karl Marx or something, or talk about Fauci and these labs and these aborted babies and these lab rats. Dad and Mom always taught me afterwards to say the Our Father, the Hail Mary, to pray to Jesus, just to clean ourselves a little bit after all this darkness. So we're going to do that. But why I'm saying that is we're going to end it also on something else that's beautiful, and end it on a beautiful note that'll get us a little bit away from this trauma momentarily to end the program, is that our producer, Annie Cyrus, does so many beautiful things, impressive things. Producer of the show, she hosts shows, and so many things. She sings, and she's very, very humble, so we won't continue the list. But one thing she's been doing lately is she started painting, or continuing her painting, very beautiful paintings, and I ordered some and I love them. She has a new Etsy channel of her paintings and other products and artifacts. Peter, something is behind you to your left. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Sitting in a prominent position on the table to my left in front of the lamp is one of Annie Cyrus's artistic creations. It's a very special vase or vase holding some fresh flowers, which arrived today. In the past week, I was already aware of Annie's considerable talents in producing and hosting videos for the Glazov Gang. But I became aware that she's an artist as well. And when I visited her Etsy channel, I was impressed with this particular vase. I ordered it, and 2 or 3 days later, it arrived, and it exceeded my expectations. It's a wonderful addition to the household here, and it will get a lot of prominent use, I can guarantee you. So I want to congratulate and thank Annie for her artistic talents and endeavors, and for making her work available. And I would suggest certainly people check out her Etsy channel site and take a look for themselves at her very unique and original artwork. A very professional job. So thank you, Annie.
Sometimes Annie just appears out of nowhere, and she's gonna, I have a feeling we're gonna hear her voice right now. And a lot of viewers are very jealous and envious that Peter has this vase. Annie, where do our viewers go to get something from your store?
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Peter, for supporting my small business. You can go to Etsy.com, look up LUTF Studio, and you can find my channel there.
Fantastic. Peter Chowka, thank you so much for joining the Glazov Gang this evening. Thank you for continuing to shine the light on so much darkness, including in this whole narrative of Fauci. Really dark stuff. Thank you for continuing to tell the truth, Peter.
Thank you, Jamie. It's always a pleasure to join you and your audience. And good night and God bless.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Glazov Gang viewers, we've had enough of YouTube, way too much censorship. We're over at the Rumble now, Rumble channel. Go to Rumble, look up the Glazov Gang, subscribe to us there, make sure you have instant notifications. We'll see you soon. Good night.